Welcome to the Final Hour podcast, coming to you from the original Living Word Christian Center out of Minneapolis, Minnesota. My name is Jim Hammond.
I'm Lonaiah Pharaoh.
I'm John Gap.
And we have Jerry.
Hello.
Jerry. And then our studio audience.
Thanks for coming
We
today.
also have Hannah.
Thanks for coming today, guys.
It's Hannah's 18th birthday. Happy birthday, Hannah.
Hey, Hannah.
And
They don't know Hannah, do they? Them.
No, they don't.
We do.
Hannah's an intern. Great intern.
to who?
To Jeremiah at the Living Word
Hannah is
Christian
Jerry's
Center.
intern.
Yep.
I was just trying to get you to give her the full
The
introduction.
full story.
She's
I
an
thought
intern.
someone was going to take over.
Well, this is
Nope.
episode 83. And,
That's incredible.
83 weeks.
That's amazing.
We've come a long way since number one.
Thank you, Jesus.
We still have people who just started watching, and they're going back to
know.
the very, very beginning. So
Yeah.
they're like doubling up. So they're listening to the beginning ones, and they're listening to the current ones.
Which is cool.
That is dedication.
Because there's a lot of people who have gone back and they're like, that's happening right now.
Right.
See some of the stuff that we're talking about that's really starting to get rolling.
Well,
True.
we are definitely in the end times. And
Yeah.
I sincerely believe that this program will be on long after the rapture. And so if you think about it in a way, you look at, remember when we did the Revelation timeline,
Yeah.
Yep.
like 32 events
Yep.
in Revelation, in a loose order. People are going to be able to follow this
Right.
later.
Yep.
I think the big guys that are getting 500,000 views, I think they're going to erase them right away, right? But also you can, I did a whole series on the book of Revelation and also Daniel, which will walk you through, the tribulation.
Yep.
From Revelation chapter 4 through, I believe it's 19, is the tribulation if you happen to get left behind.
Dun, dun.
Yeah.
I don't believe that there will be many left behind. I believe there will be some that are called to lead the huge influx of souls that come in during the tribulation. See, when the rapture happens, people are going to know. I think the churches are going to be full immediately.
Yeah.
And so
Well, it's nice of you to volunteer. I appreciate that.
I'm not volunteering. I'm saying that if you think the rapture happened and you come to church that weekend,
Right. The
We'll
other
be
people are
playing
going to
the
be there
final hour
too.
You can-
podcast
you-
episodes.
you can probably see possibly a Brian Sullivan doing
Yeah.
the services, maybe a Jamie Hammond. We don't
So
know.
many possibilities.
But and I'm kidding there when I say that, but I just don't want to be. I don't want that to be my call.
Me neither.
You used to want
I
to
did.
do it.
I did.
Until
If the Lord asked me, I would
Yeah.
bear
Well,
that mantle.
I mean,
If he asked you,
yeah, like, won't that be an honor to be asked to do that?
like,
if he asked
I mean,
you, if he
yeah.
gave you a choice,
Yeah, that's what I mean.
and nothing happened negatively, if you said no, Lord, I would have to ask
Well,
the Lord
when I
that.
get to go to heaven anyways, regardless if you do or
Yes,
you
like
don't.
I would ask the Lord, does
Right.
this affect anything at all?
right.
Do I really have a choice where it doesn't hurt me in any way? And I would say, no, I don't want to.
Well,
I don't want to. I don't want to do that. I don't want to go to
I
the
understand.
guillotine.
I understand. I get it.
But like they
Can
just
you imagine?
they just chop your
It's really, really quick.
Oh, okay.
No,
yeah, it's
I'm-
just-
you
geez.
die and it's done.
I just read a book about the guillotine. The Nazis
Yeah.
used to guillotine people, and I tell you what, when you get into the details and you're walking in there and you got to put your head down on that thing.
Do you think you
just-
think it's
no.
like a chicken where you die right away, or like you know how chickens
And
are?
that,
Well,
even
they
the
don't-
book even talked about that.
Well, because
No.
okay, we
No.
all saw Thief in the Night movie from the late 70s, early 80s, right? You never saw that? I mean, it always stuck with me because there's a point in that where there's a line of people lined up and they guillotine them and their heads just fall into a basket and like
what
that stuck
happens.
with me. But it's like it also like crystallizes your resolve of like, if it comes to it, I am not going to renounce my faith in God, in Jesus. Like, that's what those movies did for me, is I like,
You can't get the mark.
But if you
Yeah.
read the
You
Left
can't get the
Behind
mark.
books, there are some people.
I don't need to. I read the
listen,
Bible.
Who are they're in line, but they are.
Yeah.
God protects them, but
Yeah.
they're part of the evil. But the evil
Yeah.
people don't know they are, but they're good, so they're protected from guillotines. I'd like to think.
Where's that in the Bible?
that is
It's not.
absolute
It's just a book. I'm
fiction.
just saying, but God's not going to protect some people to be infiltrated into the depths of the darkness.
Look at the
to
first
warn
church.
People.
The first church and all the
Not
the
everybody
Christians,
died a martyr.
all the early church, there were so many martyrs, and that is part of what spurred the church on.
But didn't
because
Stephen just lay down and be like, "Well, he's getting
I
stoned"?
don't think he laid down.
Speaking of martyrs, are you aware that the Catholic Church killed more than all the Roman emperors put together?
Yeah,
yes.
you told us that before on here.
Anyways, that's a different subject for a different day.
Expect.
But Lonaiah and I were talking, and she brought this up to me, and it's really the reason for today's subject. She was talking about, well, how come God hardened Pharaoh's heart? How come God did that to him? You know, a lot of people ask that question. Like it's almost like Pharaoh didn't have a choice.
Is that more of a translation issue?
Well, not really. In some
You'll
cases,
find out.
Okay.
it's
I did.
Today
it's,
on the Final Hour podcast.
But the Bible says to look at the Old Testament and all that happened there and use that as an example. And so it got me thinking about the position that we're in today with these leaders, a lot of these government leaders, a lot of them we talked about last week. There's a lot more than that. But Exodus 5:1-2, Moses and Aaron went in and told Pharaoh, the Lord said, thus says the Lord, the God of Israel, let my people go that they may hold a feast to me in the wilderness. And Pharaoh said, who is the Lord that I should obey his voice to let Israel go? I know not the Lord, neither will I let him go. And so here you have God speaking to Pharaoh through Moses and Aaron. And this is a ruler of a nation, the superpower of the day.
Yeah, for sure.
Probably Egypt had the strongest military at that time in the world. They were the most technologically advanced country in the world at that time. What's interesting is God is making himself evident to this ruler of possibly the strongest nation on the earth at the time. And if you read through the story, after God warned him, Pharaoh didn't just say, I'm not paying attention to that. He doubled down, right? You had on the 2.5 million Jewish slaves that they had. He said, don't give these slaves straw to make any more brick. All right, let them find the straw. They used to supply it.
Right.
Now let's let them find it. And this changes how much work they were able to be done, but they're not able to work as fast, not having the straw available. So the quotas for the amount of brick that had to be made stayed the same.
Right.
Sad.
And so this is what's going on. And Exodus 7:10-13, Moses and Aaron went to Pharaoh again, and Aaron threw down his rod before the Pharaoh and his servants. It became a serpent. The Pharaoh called for his wise men, skilled in magic and divination, and the sorcerers, wizards, and jugglers.
Jugglers. Are
you aware that that's a talent of Lonaiah's?
I can juggle.
Lonaiah's a juggler.
I'm a juggler.
She's been
Not
juggling
a satanic
lot of things for a
juggler.
lot of time.
I've seen
A real juggler, John. A freaking real juggler.
She said
sorry.
frickin'.
Are you not allowed to say freaking?
No, I'm not that kind of dude, right? But about that, but you know those guys.
Don't be a BLT with cheese, John.
Don't.
Yes.
About my juggling. Is that better?
I think we should have a juggle off.
Juggling hacky sacks in front of 30 Indonesian children
I
in
did.
the middle of a village.
It was a great day.
Yeah.
Jim's inside praying over the sick.
I never meant to bring like some sort of like, I doubt your ability.
Or do you doubt my ability?
No.
Okay. Can you juggle, John?
Yeah.
Okay, you can.
I know. I think we should
We
juggle.
could maybe juggle things to each other.
Can't Lonaiah walk on her hands?
I can. Can you walk on your hands, John?
Yes, but only in the way that I put my hands underneath my feet and then I walk on them.
Okay, no, John.
That's the way my
A
dad taught me.
handstand walk.
Can you do the hula hoop?
Yeah, I can.
Can you do the hula hoop?
With the right hula hoop.
Okay, anyway.
John,
It needs to be a bigger hula hoop because I
Okay.
have a larger waist.
Can you do the hula hoop, Jim?
Unfortunately, to be honest, no, I've never figured out the hula hoop.
You just got to
It's a
twist
little bit
your...
of rhythm. Just
That's
You
not
don't
rhythm
got
because I
rhythm?
have rhythm.
Obviously not if you can't do a hula hoop.
I have rhythm. Okay.
I believe you. And so do the
I've
clubs
got
of the late
rhythm.
80s.
I've got
Believe
music.
So
You can't
I got
hula hoop?
sunshine.
these
Could
jugglers,
ask for anything more.
these magicians did similar things with their enchantments, and they cast down their rods, and their rods became serpents, but Aaron's serpent swallowed up their serpents.
And then they didn't have any rods to walk with.
No.
That's always like perplexed me.
What?
It's dark magic.
It is.
It is dark magic.
Were they real snakes or were they just...
Yes.
Oh, okay.
This is... You can do this kind of stuff. I'm just saying...
Do you think they're
it's
like
real.
changelings? They're like...
You've been watching Netflix, haven't you? Apple TV.
No, I don't watch TV. I read books like a nerd all the time, but...
It's not true. She likes F1.
Listen,
I do
had
like F1, but...
a guy that planted hundreds of, if not 1,000 churches in the Congo towards the end of his life. I've said this, and I asked him, I said, is the voodoo, is the stuff real? I mean, he said, this man, he was like 80 years old at the time, right? He was at the end of his life. I was hosting him at a service, and he said, yes. He said, I have seen a witch doctor turn from a panther back into a witch doctor, or either it was vice versa. And he looked me right in the eye. He said, I've seen that personally. Mm-hmm. And so this is, if you don't believe it, fine, don't believe it. But Pharaoh's heart was hardened and stubborn, and he would not listen. And so here we get a second warning. I think it's interesting. The Egyptians, through their own form of magic, produced live serpents, and Exodus 7:20 through 24 is Moses and Aaron. They lifted up the rod. At that point, some things happen. I'm just going to the main points. Hit the waters of the Nile in the sight of Pharaoh and his servants. All the waters in the river turned to blood. The fish in the river died. The river became foul-smelling.
Imagine being alive during that time. That would just be...
Depends on whose side you're on.
But let's say you're not on either side. You're just watching it, and you see this war of...
Guess
You're gonna
Powers.
fish is not for dinner.
see the water turn to blood in the tribulation.
Yeah, I know.
Yes.
I know.
But the Egyptians,
Maybe I'll be there.
I wouldn't even ever say that. Maybe I'd be there. The Egyptians
We
could
don't
not
know.
drink its water. There was blood throughout all the land of Egypt. Now,
It does sound like
interestingly enough,
Tribulation.
the magicians of Egypt did the same. It says, by their enchantments and secret arts. How did they turn it? Would they turn it redder? I mean, what'd they do?
Right.
I don't know. But Pharaoh's heart was made hard, obstinate. He didn't listen. And Pharaoh turned and went into his house. Neither did he take even this to his heart. All the Egyptians dug around the river for water to drink, and they didn't have water to drink at this point. Exodus 8, chapter 8, verses 1 through 3. Pharaoh still doesn't. The leader of the world superpower sees these things. He's not backing off. The Lord says, they go to Pharaoh, says, if you refuse to let them go, I'm going to smite your entire land with frogs. The river shall swarm with frogs, which go up and come into your house, into your bedchamber, in your bed, in the houses of your servants, upon your people, into the ovens, kneading bowls, and in the dough for your food.
So nasty.
Can
I tell you?
That's a very complete threat.
A couple years ago, in our backyard,
Yeah.
we live.
Yeah, that happened.
It did happen. We live. There's like a pond, and then there's
Frogs
a
in
river.
your dough?
No, but my kids they used to play backyard wiffle ball, and they hit a ball back there, and my youngest Wrigley went to go get it, and all of a sudden he ran back there, and tons of frogs just started leaping. And I don't know, one of my other kids went down there and they started running and just piles of frogs jumped up all over the yard. It was so disgusting. Ugh.
My wife does not like frogs.
No, aren't frogs
Sounds like some kind of curse.
Well, that's right when we moved into our house and we hadn't like started bleeding the blood over our property. That doesn't happen anymore, but it did.
It's funny. It's funny
That
that
house
you read
was
that.
a little weird.
It was very weird
first.
at first.
It's funny in that story. Like that is it. It feels like someone knows the truth, but they just refuse to let go.
Who, Pharaoh?
Pharaoh, yeah. Like,
well, he thinks he's
people
God.
are so proud. They have such pride that they are not willing to recognize what God's doing.
And, I got the conversation that Lonaiah and I had. Well, why did he harden Pharaoh's heart? Well, you can find this in the New Testament too.
Yeah.
And so this is just, I can say, this is my opinion, but what I'm saying is, because I'm going to show you in the New Testament where I believe this happened to Pharaoh and how it happens to people today.
Okay.
This helped me.
And it's what it's called is rightly dividing the word. That's what I am attempting to do here. All right. It's my opinion.
Right on.
But I believe I am rightly dividing the word. And so the word of God, Exodus 8:5-8, the Lord said to Moses, say to Aaron, stretch out your hand with your rod over the rivers, the streams, the canals, the pools, cause the frogs to come up on the land of Egypt and into Lonaiah's yard. And so Aaron stretched out his hand.
Not anymore.
Okay, I thought about this, though, just quickly. You have to, when you take your authority every day, I would seriously, in this day and age, I would say in the name of Jesus Christ, I bind any spirit or spirits behind any curses that have been leveled against me. And I always say from any witch, warlock, Satanist, New Ager, out of anything else, any book, anything I watch, it's got to come from someone. Someone's got to put the curse on. I send you back to the cursor. You can send it back. And I believe that it goes back to them. On them.
Reverse.
Boomerang.
Yes, you can reverse it. And
Gotta Uno reverse.
but
it.
there's one of the most prolific ministers at one point in the world. Sick. It almost reminded me of Lord of the Rings. Remember that king? Is
Theoden.
Theoden. That he just kind of lost his mind.
Yep.
Right.
He had wormwood or worm tongue.
This particular minister, I can't say names and things, but they found a charm that had been sitting in this minister's jewelry for years, and they're wondering what the problem was suddenly with this minister. But you don't just take anything from anyone.
Yeah.
Do you understand?
Yeah.
You don't just go buy something from another country and set it up in your living room.
Yeah.
And if you're one of the people that have that and you got all these issues, then you might want to look at that.
Throw it away.
You might want to look
Absolutely.
at that.
That's happened to me before.
Well, just out of nowhere, I found a coin on my garage floor that had a bat on it.
Weird.
Like a bat.
Interesting.
And I'm like, where
Did you
would this
Google
come
that?
from? Where? No, I hid the coin off my property, and I've got to go get the coin to bring it in here for us to look at it. But some said just get it off your property for now. But I wanted to look at it.
Right.
A bat coin.
I'm just saying you need to
Batman.
take your authority in this day and age. No, not Batman.
It was a
coin.
joke, Jim.
Okay, a real bat.
But can I
And
say
there's like
something?
another little animal down in the corner. It's on a coin.
Weird.
Can I say something though? Because me and Jim had the conversation about binding
and loosing.
Yeah, and the curses.
Yeah.
And this is so crazy because I went to bed that night after we had
frog?
talked about
Oh,
it. No,
I thought
about
you
the
were-
curses,
yeah.
about the whole
yeah.
charm thing.
Yeah.
And I was like, I kind of said like, oh, I don't really do that with curses because like, I don't think that way. The next morning I wake up and the first thing that came to mind was our conversation. I was like, okay, I'm going to bind any curses that were leveled against me.
Yeah.
So
Or your family.
I don't normally like wake up and pray right away.
Yeah.
I just like wake up and you check your phone but I prayed. I woke up and I prayed.
Yep.
And then I reached down and I grabbed my phone and I'm flipping through my phone and my sister Lindsay sends me a text and it's a Facebook post. And it is a post and it says Lonaiah was killed in a car accident last night with like 4 other people. She's like, I think your Facebook got hacked. And I was like, that's really weird. So I go onto my Facebook and I'm like, my Facebook didn't get hacked. But the girl, like, so me and 4 other people or 9 other people were like said that we died in this car accident. It was like an ABC, like Minnesota State news article that said we got killed at whatever o'clock. But isn't that interesting that I woke up right away and I bound any curses, and we had just had that conversation. Then my sister sends me that weird Facebook post.
Weird.
Obviously, I didn't die.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And so I do. I clear I call it clearing the slate every day. I send it back. Anyone that's going to curse me is going to wind up with that curse. They're going to wind up with it on them. And I'm very confident of that. And you have the power from what Jesus did at the cross and through the resurrection to protect yourself from that. Unfortunately, people perish from a lack of knowledge.
Yep.
Right? And so there's people walking around wondering what the problem is, and they're simply they've been cursed because it is real. It can happen. It's reality. Exodus 8:5 and 8. The Lord said to Moses, "Stretch out your hand with the rod." Okay, so this is Aaron stretched out his hand over the waters, and the frogs came up, covered the land. Then the magicians made more frogs come up.
It seems like exacerbated
They want to show they could do what
This is interesting. It's making a point. This is making a point. Okay, and Pharaoh called for Moses, said, "Entreat the Lord that he may take away the frogs."
Yeah.
Well,
He wanted him to take away both frogs.
But wait, the
There are
magicians
frogs.
couldn't the magicians take them away? No.
No.
I will let the people go. That if you'll take away the frogs.
Let my people go.
Warning 4. Think about the kind of evil power.
Let my people.
What's that?
Is the blood? Is the water still blood while the frogs are jumping around?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know if it cleared up. I don't know.
I don't know either.
And so if you study out Babylon, the Babylonians, the evil magician type sorcerers that dealt heavily in the black arts, they go all the way back to Babylon. They could do amazing things. Okay, and so Exodus 8:15 through 18, when Pharaoh saw that there was a temporary relief, he was able to stop the frogs. He made his heart stubborn. Pharaoh did, and hard, would not listen or heed them, just as the Lord had said. Notice when Pharaoh saw the release of the frogs and they went away, he made his heart stubborn. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Stretch your rod, strike the dust of the ground, that it may become gnats or mosquitoes." The dust
How annoying.
becomes mosquitoes and gnats. Aaron stretched out his hand with his rod, struck the dust of the earth. There came biting gnats and mosquitoes on man and beast. All the dust of the land became biting gnats.
I recently went golfing with Pastor Kent, and my legs, there were no mosquitoes, but my legs were bitten by gnats, and like they all had like little sores. And I just think about something like this where all of the dust becomes biting gnats. That sounds like absolute hell.
Just a few are annoying.
Yeah. They can
Just
ruin
one
your
or two
day
can
just by
They can ruin your day.
Yeah.
The magicians tried their enchantments and secret arts to bring forth gnats and mosquitoes. They could not. So their power stopped here.
Only at frogs.
There were gnats.
We can do
But
frogs.
are frogs
We can
part
do frogs.
of sorcery? Don't the witchcraft people, they use frogs.
Yes.
Yeah.
There were gnats and mosquitoes on every beast and man. And now the magicians, black magic, had reached a point where they could not match the power of God. They tried, but they could not. And they looked at Pharaoh and they said, "This is the finger of God." Verse 19.
The magician said that.
Yeah, the magician said to Pharaoh,
they
"This is the finger of God." But Pharaoh's heart was hardened and strong, and he would not listen to them, just as the Lord had said. Warning number 5, you had gnats and mosquitoes. Warning number 6, blood-sucking gadflies. Everywhere, swarms of them. Think about one horsefly. What one horsefly? Just walking my dog, what one horsefly?
You guys,
They
Just
hurt.
bite. They don't even
hurt
suck your
so
blood. They
bad.
bite.
They just bite you.
I remember the first time I
hurts.
got bit by one, it hurt. Yes, I was a little kid at my grandma's
They're easy to
cabin.
kill, though, because they stay too long on
Right.
you.
Right.
They're not smart enough to fly off of you, and I can't tell you how many
damage
I've
is
crushed
already
in my hair while I'm walking the dog. But think about one horsefly. I mean, just one horsefly.
It is
Can
terrible.
and there's are swarms of blood sucking. Horseflies don't suck your blood; they just bite you.
Yeah.
And so Pharaoh's like, please stop the flies, and I'll let the 2.5 million slaves go.
Let my people.
Moses goes out to God. Exodus 8:32 stops the flies. Exodus 8:32. Pharaoh hardened his heart when the flies stopped, made it stubborn. This time also, and he didn't let him go. So we have Pharaoh hardening his heart.
Yeah.
Remember from the beginning, God can see into the future if he wants to here. And I believe God looked into the future in this case. I seriously don't believe, if you think this out, this is kind of deep, and I can't prove it, but I don't think God always looks into the future concerning us. I think he would rather not. I think he would rather not. If he was then looking into the future at everything that we're going to do, how could he believe the best?
Right.
Because the Bible's very clear in Corinthians, in the love chapter, it says God's love believes the best in you.
Right.
All right?
Yeah.
How could he believe the best in you and look into the future and see that you're going to really possibly blow it, right? I believe it is my opinion that he looks into the future when he absolutely has to, when millions of lives can be affected, as in this case. Remember now, the Bible says he believes the best in us. I don't believe he's always checking into the future to micromanage to see what we're going to do. I believe the Bible says he believes the best. I believe he does not look into the future unless it's absolutely necessary. That's so he can believe the best. Mm-hmm. And so it's interesting that Pharaoh's magicians, Pharaoh, what were you going to say something there, John?
I think I was just no. I did. I mean, I was thinking about God. If he's always looking into the future, and if that would change his mind about us, it would take away the idea of free will, and it would take away our ability to choose him freely. And he wants us to choose him freely because he operates in love. So
I think in a situation,
I appreciate the way you're presenting it.
That affect a lot of
Yeah.
people. Say there's a lot of sheep involved,
Right.
with a pastor.
Right.
I think maybe in that situation, if
Yeah.
it's going to cause, if God thinks it's going to cause thousands to walk away from him, then he will look into that guy's future and say, is this guy going to put
Right.
everything in jeopardy here?
Yep.
Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah,
I think
absolutely.
in certain situations, he does look into the future.
Yeah.
He does.
Yeah.
And so, but you had warning number 7, he kills all their cattle. Warning number 8, the Lord said to Moses, take 2 handfuls of ashes out of the furnace. Let Moses sprinkle it towards heaven in the sight of Pharaoh. It become small dust in the land of Egypt, and shall be a boil breaking forth with blains upon men and upon beasts throughout all the land. They took the ashes of the furnace, stood before Pharaoh, sprinkled it toward heaven. It became a boil breaking forth with blains upon man and upon beast. The magicians could not stand before Moses because the magicians had boils. It points out that these guys couldn't stop that from happening.
Isn't this interesting that some of these things are like what happens during the tribulation?
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. This happens.
Crazy.
Yes. And the boil was upon the magicians and upon all the Egyptians, not the Israelites. The Lord hardened the heart. Now, after the Pharaoh doing it and doing it and doing it and doing it.
So this is like time number 7.
This is the first time, the 7th time, the Lord hardens the heart of Pharaoh. All right. So this is the question Lonaiah was asking.
Yeah.
And so interestingly enough, after 7 warnings, the first one being verbal, you had the Lord harden Pharaoh's heart. Earlier, Pharaoh made that decision.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, in the Hebrew language, this is in the permissive sense. God allowed the enemy
That's what I was
to harden Pharaoh's heart.
Yeah.
Okay. That's what that means. It's permissive. It's kind of deep, but that's as much as I can really explain it without getting into. In a permissive sense. I just think it's interesting here. After the boils, it says these boils came upon all the magic men too. And so you had the plague of hail and fire. After that, it says in verse 17, yet Yet exaltest thou thyself against my people, and thou wilt not let them go. Behold, tomorrow about this time I will cause it to rain a very grievous hail, such as hath not been in Egypt since the foundation thereof, even until now. Notice, since he's exalting himself in a haughty defiance, and you can see this in Revelation also, a haughty defiance of God, and with the spirit of Antichrist that is in the world ahead of time, all right, there is more and more of a haughty defiance, all right? And you say, well, are you aware there is a New Testament explanation for this? Hailfire coming down, you got a plague of locusts after that. Notice he's doing a lot of this himself. Pharaoh is doing a lot of it. People don't catch that. When the hailfire is stopped, it says, and late in Exodus 9, he toughened and stiffened his own heart. Again, he does it himself. Right. Pharaoh's heart says in the Amplified that his heart was strong and obstinate. And all these plagues, the Lord is only hardened at once. After the locusts, it's interesting. You've got this back and forth. You know, Pharaoh is possibly just giving lip service. Listen to what he says. He says, I have sinned against the Lord your God, Exodus 10:16 through 18. Now, therefore, I forgive, I pray thee, my sin only this once, and entreat the Lord your God that he may take away from me this death. And so he went out from Pharaoh and entreated the Lord. Moses did. The plague of he goes back on that again.
Yep.
All right. Lies. Maybe he wasn't lying.
Well, maybe when like everything stopped, you know, like when you have all this pressure on you and then it stops you, like you're telling the Lord you're going to do all these things. And then when the pressure comes off, then you are like, oh, I forgot I said I was going to do all those things. Maybe that's what happened to Pharaoh.
Yes. But you can't deny the fact that, I mean, he's seeing these things and his magicians can't do them.
Right.
Right. And he's seeing that there's a God here.
Has to be.
There is a God. And so you had a plague of darkness. And then actually the last plague was firstborn children dying. Egyptians, firstborn children died.
Is that the blood on the doorposts?
Yes. Yeah. Including Pharaoh's son. And then, so listen, and Moses and Aaron, finally, Exodus 11:10, did all these wonders before Pharaoh, and then finally the Lord hardened Pharaoh's heart, right? And so at the end of all this, the Lord hardened it. And what is the New Testament version of this? I just want to make a point. I mean, this guy was so messed up, Pharaoh. The Egyptians, just if you study it on the surface, worship 24 different demons, right?
Yeah.
It's a very demonic religion they had. Anubis, that's the dogman god, right? Horus, Osiris, Thoth, Amun, Isis. I believe Isis is Ashtoreth, the Israelites. The Israelite version of Ashtoreth, the same goddess. She's here today. She's behind all the transgender stuff. Hathor, Bastet, Sekhmet, Ta, Sobek, Mot, Geb, Nut, Nephthys, Best. These are their gods. Num,
they could have picked better names.
Ra.
Well, they spoke Egyptian. So.
Capri, Shu, Tefnut, Neith.
Maybe it sounds better in Egyptian.
Right, maybe.
24 demons. And just stay with me here.
And what Moses, because he was technically Pharaoh's son.
I was going to ask about this,
He would have had to have grown up worshiping them.
They don't have to worship
or
him,
like
but
he would have been
definitely
around
that
it enough.
Culture was around for sure. So is this Pharaoh
his grandpa, his dad,
his adopted dad, because the Pharaoh's daughter
I don't think
found
so.
him, or is this his?
I think it's switched.
It'd be like his son or his like brother, stepbrother.
Oh.
I always wondered that. Is this
that's a good
I'll
question.
Google
because then
see if Google's
there
right.
might be some competition even between
good point.
Moses, and Moses wasn't even doing all the talking.
Right.
Aaron's doing the talking
Wasn't
for him.
Aaron a stutterer too? He didn't want to do it.
Moses was a
Moses was the stutterer. Yeah, and that's why he's like, God, I'll do this, but I don't speak so good.
But just stay with me here.
Yeah.
I believe this is where a lot of our government leaders are
Yes.
at this point in their own way, whether if they grew up hearing about God or they grew up in church or not. And I can't judge how God has tried to get things across to them, but I really believe you can get to a point where God literally turns you over to the point where there is a point of no return. I seriously
But
believe
look how
that.
many chances Pharaoh got. Think of
Or
I'm talking about them living in their deception, how deceived they are.
give you over.
Yes, and you can find it in Romans chapter 1, Romans 1:17. It says, and therein is the righteousness of God revealed from faith to faith. Righteousness of God in the New Testament means cleared from all guilt is revealed. You have to believe. And the just, the cleared from all guilt shall live by faith. So that's the gospel. And if you read earlier in the chapter, it's saying it's for everyone, Romans chapter 1. But this is what I like to call the gradual ladder to hell. Okay?
Sure. Yeah.
All right, Romans 1:18.
it
Maybe
is.
that's what we
I think
title the
we
podcast.
should. The ladder to hell. Isn't there a ladder?
to hell. Jacob's
It's
ladder.
like Jacob's ladder, but it's
the
a-
reverse.
Satan's ladder.
Yeah, for the wrath of God is revealed from heaven against all ungodliness and unrighteousness of men who hold the truth in unrighteousness. Notice it says in the Amplified, it says, men in their wickedness repress and hinder the truth. All right. So verse 19, because
Sounds like the ministry of truth.
yes, because that which may be known of God is manifest to them, for God hath he's showed these people.
Yeah.
And you know, these are government leaders. A lot of these people we talked about in last week's right here in Minnesota. Romans 1:22, professing themselves to be wise, and they became fools.
It reminds me of people that are shown like the horrors of abortion and still say that it's a good thing. You know,
Yeah.
the people that oppose, even though they've watched the actual procedure.
The
where
procedure
a child
is
Seeing the
killed.
fetus trying to avoid
It is so sad.
what's coming,
It is.
and they just say, no, that's not life.
trying to
That's-
avoid it.
Yeah.
Even in our inner consciousness, God is evident. Okay, in the wording in verse 20, God is clearly discernible through the things that have been made on earth. All right, did I miss verse 20? Because that's a big. What?
Didn't you just read it? Is that the ladder to hell? Oh, okay.
I did miss verse 20. Can one of you guys look up verse 20?
Good.
Can you see
John.
it amplified?
I got mine right here.
Can we see it in the amplified? Romans 1:20. You see, God is clearly discernible to every single one of us. It says just through you just look at the earth.
Yeah.
And if you're honest with yourself, right, you're going to see.
Do you think maybe that's why while John's looking that up,
Yeah, I got you.
you know how they're putting chips in people, that's another thing they can overcome is people, like, you know how you're saying, God, you can, in your inner conscious, God is evident, but they can maybe take that away with the chip that they're implanting in your brain because they can override
distort
or
it?
try to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What does it say, John? Romans 1:20.
For ever since the creation of the world, his invisible nature and attributes, that is, his eternal power and divinity, have been made intelligible and clearly discernible in and through the things that have been made, his handiworks. So men are without excuse, altogether without any defense or justification.
What that's saying is if men can't see this, that's not going to be an excuse.
Right.
If you get to the point where you've hardened your heart enough, where you do not see it, where you ignore it, and you start down a track, it's like you're climbing down a ladder to hell.
Yeah. Verse 21. I mean, it's like
John,
the
that's
description of
next.
it. I know. I'm just looking at it.
But
I'm
I
like
like it. I
dang.
like the Amplified.
Yeah.
We put in the King James, and we should have put
Okay,
in
John,
the
well,
Amplified something.
I can do it if you want it. I got it right here.
Yes. What does it say? Romans 1:21.
Because they knew and recognized him as God, they did not honor and glorify him as God or give him thanks, but instead they became futile, godless in their thinking, with vain imaginations. foolish reasoning and stupid speculations, and their senseless minds were darkened.
Wow, they're senseless.
Listen, notice the wording.
That is so great.
Notice the wording in verse 20 where the word thinking in the Greek language, vain imagining, foolish reasoning, and stupid speculation along with senseless, darkened mind.
Absolutely.
And you cannot tell me this is not where we're at.
Yes.
God wouldn't make the planet Earth last until he says it's going to last. And he burns it up after the millennium to cleanse it. Okay?
Oh.
All right. And so, you know, but they're saying we're destroying the earth, and because of our ridiculousness and insensitivity, we're all going to wind up burning up the planet or getting an ice age. Okay, that is what are those words? What do you call that? Foolish reasoning.
But speaking of
foolish reasoning
starting,
and stupid speculation.
Yes, stupid speculation.
They're starting to change their stance on climate change because no one's buying it. So Bill Gates and the British Prime Minister, I don't know his name.
I don't know.
The Indian guy. They have started to say that people aren't buying into this, so they're going to reroute and rechange. Like they're saying what they're going to do.
Everything.
They're going to rebrand it because people aren't buying into the climate change and how finances can help it.
Listen, this has turned into a world religion.
Yeah.
It's turning into a world religion. We've read you, Klaus Schwab, out of the World Economic Forum, has been quoted. We've quoted him on this program that climate change is the new or will be the new world religion. And that's what the Bible is talking about when it's talking about foolish reasoning, stupid speculation, and senseless mind. Boy, does that feel good to say that.
It does.
Oh my gosh. Feels good to say that. Telling little girls that they should be boys and little boys that they should be girls. Stupid speculation. Darkened hearts there. Right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
That goes past stupid. All right.
It does go past stupid.
All right.
This whole chapter is like, it feels like we're right in the middle.
We're there.
Oh,
this is where we are. Romans 1:21. Because when they knew God, they glorified him not as God, neither were thankful, but became vain in their imaginations, and their foolish hearts were darkened. We just read that in the AMP. John just read it. In the AMP, it said stupid speculations, senseless minds that are darkened, trying to pass laws, not calling a pedophile, but calling them a minor attracted person.
Disgusting.
That's senseless.
It is senseless.
That's stupid. That's stupid and senseless, right? And let's just continue to climb down the ladder to hell, shall we?
Yeah, absolutely.
In Romans 1:24, therefore God gave them up in their lust of their own hearts to sexual impurity, dishonoring of their bodies among themselves, abandoning them to degrading power of sin. God gave them up. Now he's made a move. He said, you know what he said? I'm not helping you anymore.
Right.
When it says God gave them up, you don't get any more. In other words, I'm not sending you anyone else or anything else. Yep. All right. And what happens? It would be dishonoring your body to switch your sexual organs to the opposite sex. Would that possibly be dishonoring your body?
It would be.
One way to do it.
Is it dishonoring to do that to little children?
It's despicable.
9, 10, 11, 12.
3 years old. I read about a 3-year-old.
It sounds kind of like where we are, doesn't it? This is where we are. And listen to this. Romans 1:26. For this reason, God gave them over, abandoned them to vile affections, degrading passions. For their women exchanged their natural function.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
That's
for
right
an
there.
Unnatural and abnormal one.
Crazy.
In other words, they're putting on a guy's function.
Yeah.
Their natural function is no longer there.
Yeah.
I mean, the Bible is calling it. Verse 27, the men also turned their natural relations with women, were set ablaze, burning out, consumed with lust for one another, men committing shameful acts with men and suffering in their own bodies, personalities, the inevitable consequences and the penalty of their wrongdoing going astray, which was their fitting retribution. Isn't it funny? Fine, LGBTQ if you want to marry each other, go ahead, right? Go ahead. Go ahead. You know, I don't, that's your business. That's not my business. Right. Okay. But that doesn't mean I have to say it's okay.
Right.
All right.
Yep.
But notice, that's your prerogative. But then notice, once that gets in place, accepted, now we're changing sexual organs of 3-year-olds.
And now we're changing laws that you can have consensual sex with a minor.
Yeah, now we're trying.
If the little kid just says, like shakes their head, yes, at you, that's consent. When the kid doesn't know what's happening.
And that was just voted down in California. But see, that's just the beginning. They don't just say, oh, we can't do that.
Well,
no,
we
lost. Here. No, they bring it back next year.
Yep.
And then they wait 2 years, they bring it back in 2 years.
Or they hide it in another law that they
they try to sneak it in here. Sneak it in there, and everybody just gets tired of it. People stop paying attention, and you know what? It sounds unbelievable, right? Yeah. That's unbelievable that you would make it a law that a child can consent to an adult to have sex with them. But you know what? After hearing it and hearing it and hearing it and hearing it and hearing it, changing the language, they're no longer a pedophile. They're a minor attracted adult. Yeah. Right? Changing the language, and after a while, it gets voted in. Right? That's what they do. It's their plan.
They're trying to do that in Minnesota and California.
Yes, these are literal law. There are literal laws that are trying to be passed that say a teacher can counsel a little boy or a little girl on a need to change their gender without and hiding it from the parents. In essence, hiding it.
It's horrible.
You're just climbing down the ladder.
The ladder to hell.
I mean, the ladder to hell.
It is.
Welcome to the ladder to hell. And you get there. Pharaoh got there.
This helped.
But here's when God says, check this out. Romans 1:28. So since these people that we mentioned last week, in my opinion, the doofus out there governing California, what's his name?
Gavin
Newsom.
Yeah.
You mean the one who's probably going to run for a Democrat?
Yeah.
Yeah. President.
Probably will.
Since they do not see fit to acknowledge God or approve of him or consider him worth knowing, God gave them over at that point, like he did to Pharaoh, to a base and condemned mind, to do things not proper or decent, but loathsome. And this is the world we're currently living in. And I believe this is where a lot of our government leaders are now. This is how you get to the point where you're given over. The King James calls it a reprobate mind.
Yeah.
He gives you over. And thoroughly and utterly deceived to the point where there's nothing coming from God to help you anymore.
Right.
Okay? And so, because you've been given over. I mean, that's what we're just reading here, right? And Romans 1:29, until they were filled, permeated, saturated with every kind of unrighteousness, iniquity, grasping, covetous greed, malice. They were full of envy and jealousy, murder, strife, deceit, treachery, ill will, cruel ways. They were secret backbiters, gossipers, slanderers, hateful to and hating God, full of insolence, arrogance, boasting, inventors of new forms of evil.
Yeah, that's true.
New forms all the time.
Well, who even invented that you could put a male sexual organ on a female? That's an invention.
That is an invention.
Or vice versa.
It doesn't happen naturally.
No.
They were without understanding, consciousness, faithless, heartless, loveless, heartless to a 3-year-old that has no ability to say, I don't want to be a boy.
Yeah.
Okay?
Heartless to an unborn or just born baby.
You know what it says in verse 32?
Child.
They were fully aware of God. And those who do such things deserve to die, not only do themselves, but approve and applaud others who practice them. Right? So listen, people make mistakes. People blow it every day. We're all fallible.
Yeah.
We all fall short. But I'm just trying to show you that I think we're to a point in our society where many of our leaders are at this point.
Yeah.
Where God views them. They have been turned over to what it calls in the King James as to a reprobate mind.
Yeah.
Since they do not see fit to acknowledge God, approve of him, consider him worth knowing. That's what it says in the end. And we're going to continue this next week.
Wow.
Because it gets deeper.
Yeah.
And there is more on this, how people get to a point where they're actually possessed. And we're going to discuss Christians
Yeah.
and the possession issue. But, I personally believe Gavin Newsom is possessed.
Yep.
All right. And how do you get to that point? Going back to trying to tie this in with the Moses story. Think about the warnings Pharaoh had. Mm-hmm. He saw, he got to see the power of God. He got to see his vaunted magicians with boils all over them. His magicians called it God. His magicians acknowledged God, but Pharaoh got to the point he didn't approve of him. He didn't consider him worth knowing. God gave him over to a base and condemned mind, permitted that to happen. Pharaoh, leader of the superpower of the day. That's do you see where I'm going with this?
Yeah.
Yep. As I hope you enjoyed the ladder to hell.
Doesn't it though explain America, why we are where we are right now?
It explains a side of it. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And why you look at some things and you're like, what is?
How has this happened?
Yeah. How did we get here?
And how does it keep going here?
Right.
Darker and darker and darker.
That helped me. Just like last week's helped me understand Minnesota and why Minnesota is, I don't know, in the place it is, I guess. As a state.
Yeah.
Anyways. So I don't know if you guys all watched last week's, but we talked about obviously Minnesota and the Chinese Communist Party's infiltration.
Did you watch last week, Hannah?
Thank you, Hannah.
Yeah.
Anyways, they're not only in the government, you guys, because the CCP, I didn't know this.
What's the CCP?
The Chinese Communist Party.
Oh, okay, thanks.
Okay. They fund classrooms across the United States. Did you know that?
Yes, actually.
You did?
I did.
I did not know that. Did you, Jim?
Not until you told me early in the week. And you know what?
But you guys.
It's not surprising.
No.
Well,
it's not surprising.
It's all these school districts and
charter schools.
They're like, we need funds from somewhere, and
nonprofits that are connected to China. We will take grants and finances from you.
If you're not really vetting those resources, then you're going to find yourself really.
That's what happened in Texas. So Texas, they were getting a new board member in this. I guess it's called the International Leadership of Texas, and they were transferring and voting on a new president. People started looking at the organizations that were donating, so they did a deep dive, and they're like, "Oh, this one's connected to the Chinese Communist Party. They are allowed to give funds to these schools. So it's 23,000 schools, K through 12 students at 22 physical campuses across Texas. It's free charter schools that this is a part of. Mm-hmm. But anyways.
And don't think that they're doing that just out of goodwill.
No. Listen.
Okay.
They mask the funding ties to the Chinese Communist Party with third-party nonprofits, but they provide salaries for Chinese teachers and funding Chinese cultural programs, that's how they do it, for the students. And in those programs is how they infiltrate the CCP and their beliefs. But hey, Texas, you're doing the right thing there and stopping that. But that's why you have to do deep dives on where the money, it's follow the money. How many times have we said follow the money? You got to deep dive in to the money.
Even just the titles of things, like we talked about the Democratic Socialist Party,
right?
The Freedom Fund,
or the Freedom Road, right? These are communist organizations, with card-carrying communists, right?
Yeah.
If you really look into it, it's not. Anyways.
And last week we talked about Mary Maiority. She was part of some of those groups Jim connected on. Well, her partner is running for the Hennepin County School Board to become like the head of the school board for Hennepin County. Her name is Jen Westmoreland. Okay. And she will be over, if she wins, the second largest elected government body in Minnesota, and it will control the budget of Mary Moriarty. I don't know how to say her name.
Moriarty.
Yeah, her. Yep. But see, these people all have ties. So she's going to be over your education. She's currently in Hopkins, and my neighbor, Janet, goes to a lot of Hopkins school board meetings, and she comes back and she's told me some of the things that Hopkins school board has allowed into their public schools, and this will definitely change Minnesota's public schools if you guys don't fight against her winning this seat.
This woman in.
Yes.
All right.
You got to pay attention.
Yes.
That's why last week's episode was so eye-opening, because you just think, oh, I don't know. You just look at the people and you don't do a deep dive into everything they're connected to.
They're just Democrats.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm just voting for the Democratic ticket.
But
no,
I
you're
will
not.
say, there's probably,
No,
I
you're
mean,
not.
there's bad people on both sides. Look at some of the
Of
Republicans.
course there
They're
are.
probably
Absolutely
connected with some of those groups too. But anyways, pay attention. You
gotta pay
especially
attention.
when it comes to your kids, you are sending your kids to school for 8 hours a day to be under someone else's.
more FaceTime than really you get with your
How
kids.
much? Some parents
Especially if you're
don't ever see
work
their
outside
kids
of the
because they're
home.
working. They have 2-3 jobs with finances lately, or your kids are in sports and you're just funneling them off. But they're going to school. This one dad walked his kid into school for the first time this year. On 3 of the doors, I don't know what state it was in, LGBTQ group. LGBT, everything was LGBTQ or gender group or come to this, come to that, find out about this. He's like just in the 3 front doors of the school.
Right.
And so next week, episode 84 in the Final Hour podcast, we continue on the ladder to hell.
The ladder to
no
hell.
kidding.
It is. Speaking of the ladder to hell,
Yes.
this is interesting. So, speaking of children and ladders to hell, Zelensky taps occultist with Clinton ties.
Oh my
I don't
gosh.
even know how to say this lady's name, but Zelensky asked Marina Abramović, whatever. She is, if you guys know what is it, spirit cooking is?
I don't know what spirit cooking is.
So spirit cooking is an occult, and you take blood, other forms of human liquids, and you like do rituals, liquids, and you do rituals with it. They're into cannibalism. They're into sacrificing children. Basically, if you know who John Podesta is,
Yes.
with the Clintons, she was heavily involved with the Clintons and John Podesta.
Yeah.
So WikiLeaks, I don't know if you guys know, like Pizzagate,
Yes.
all that stuff. This was all tied with this
If you don't know,
Abramović lady and
look
the
into it.
Podestas.
Abramović. I think it's Abramović.
But
It could be in
Zelensky has invited her to help the children affected in Ukraine by helping them rebuild schools. Now, why would he ask this lady?
A satanic witch.
She is. She
In
is
essence.
very, very.
Zelensky.
She's very satanic.
dark and
To
satanic.
come and help the children, okay, you guys. There is sex trafficking ties.
Yep.
Like, look at what's the guy's name who died, and the Clinton, like the
Epstein?
Yes,
Which one?
all those people are all connected, and
Yep.
Zelensky is asking this lady to come to Ukraine and help with the schools. Like,
Why?
does that not make you scratch your head?
Yes. There's
Speaking
no
of-
reason to.
And speaking of the Clintons and this tie, it's
yeah.
interesting that the Clintons opened up a fund of theirs that they had shut down. They opened it up last week. This will help them give humanitarian aid to Ukraine to help schools. So now the Clintons
Yeah.
are paying for schools. So why do you think they're bringing this lady in?
They were so the Clinton Foundation already under suspicion and a lot of problems because of what they did in Haiti.
Yes,
The Clinton
yes.
Foundation totally uncovered. It's been uncovered that they were doing crazy, shady stuff
Yes.
in Haiti, and now they're the government. I don't know if this is the House or the Senate or whoever. They're using the Clinton Foundation to then funnel the funds to Ukraine again.
To Ukraine.
But
To open schools for children, and now you have this lady who Zelensky's asking to come in to help them with the school openings.
They're bringing in the head witch.
Come on, you
Yeah.
guys.
yeah,
Like,
if you cannot read between the lines, you need to read it again because it is stating.
He's not even hiding
and
this.
can I say, when you
they're not
hear about
hiding
it
this.
all separately,
Yeah.
But he could have done this in secret.
Yeah.
He could have done this.
Zelensky,
all-
Yeah.
but the devil.
But it was publicized, right?
Yeah.
Yes, but
publicized.
if you know anything about the Satanists, they have to say, for whatever
have-
reason, they have to say what they're doing, and it has to be made public.
It's because if you don't fight it, it is permission.
Yes.
That's what it is your consent. If you're silent, then that is taken as consent.
Yeah.
And so that means that you're involved. You're accountable for it because
And-
you didn't fight against it.
And I don't know why Ukraine needs more money. I mean, we've given them like $113 billion, which this brings me to our next point of contact. So CBS or CNN, I can't remember which one. They did a deep dive into Ukraine, and they said American tax dollars are subsidizing Ukrainian business. Oh, it was CBS over the weekend. They did a 60-minute special. So they said the U.S. government has spent hundreds of millions of dollars footing the bill to purchase seeds and fertilizers for Ukrainian farmers, as well as paying the salaries of 57,000 of their government employees.
Yeah.
Is that crazy? So we have already
Not tanks, not
No.
planes,
No.
not artillery.
Well, we just
no, I'm saying
Yes.
This is where it's going here.
So the U.S. has already sent over $100 billion to Ukraine since the war began in February of 2022. So Biden just asked Congress for another $24 billion. So he's like on $113 billion limit
Yeah.
that they've allocated
And
since last year.
they're asking. Zelensky just came in last week and said, "Hey, could you give us
More money?"
into the U.S. Congress? I'm
Yes,
tired
he
of
did.
letting people address our Congress that are not part of our Congress."
But did
or
you
part of
hear
this
Joe Biden
situation.
say that if the government shut down, because the government, I don't know if it's the Senate or the House, I don't know which one, but they're saying they
The
don't
House.
want bills, the House,
Yeah.
they don't want bills being passed that are like, they have an umbrella over it. So this bill's about this subject, but
Yeah.
there's 10 other things involved, and those go to other
Right.
things. They said they want each bill to be its own separate
Yes.
bill.
So
Yes.
you can
So you know
vote on
what
it
money you're
specifically.
voting for.
Yeah.
And Joe Biden said, if the government shuts down, the only people, so we're not talking about our military people,
Yeah.
our government officials, nobody will get paid, but we will still send money to Ukraine.
But we can.
Why?
Yeah.
And that's
Because they
what they're
have
fighting
something on
in
him. Listen
Congress.
to me.
Yeah.
They have something on him.
Right.
That's the only thing to explain.
Of course they do.
Why he's been so
not
the
only-
friend of China, in essence,
you guys-
letting them do
Yeah.
I have
whatever
something on
China
that.
wants to do. Ukraine, I guarantee it's going to come out. They have something on them.
Well, and
Speaking
not
of Jim
only-
and China, what he just said,
Yeah.
China wired $250,000 to the Biden home during the presidential campaign, but it was marked for Hunter Biden. Is that a coincidence? Come
No.
on.
Well, and that's
It's all right here. It's facts. I have all the articles to
Yeah.
back all this up.
anytime you find shady financing, you are always going to find the person who is making it happen is benefiting from it. There's going to be a kickback in that funding. That usually it's just money laundering. Like that is a way
Yeah,
to get
who's that
money
guy?
from one place to another without it being suspicious. Well,
Adam
all
Schiff
of this
or
Schiff, yeah.
they just found out that he was paying his donors.
Yeah.
So if you donated $900 to his campaign,
Right.
he was giving these donors back from American tax dollars, like $1.2 million back to their foundations that they donated from.
Interesting.
Yeah. I just read about that. the other
using
day.
his donors or paying his donors back.
Yes.
Yeah.
With government tax dollars.
That's a
These-
kickback
Yep.
situation.
You look at all this and you say it's the grace of God that America's even still standing because they're
Yep.
truly trying to run this country
Yes,
into the ground.
they are.
Into hell.
They really are. They
Yeah.
really are. And so
I'm just trying to see what else.
it's okay. Just keep going. We're not in a hurry.
We're not in a hurry. So, Dr. Anthony Fauci.
Ooh, Tony.
So, did
Hey,
you know
Tony
that he
Fauci.
secretly influenced the CIA's COVID-19 origins probe? They just found out.
Who's they though?
So,
who is
the Department of Health and Human Services.
They recorded.
They did a deep dive into Anthony Fauci and what was happening and why the CIA was helping to protect and block where the origins Wuhan were coming from.
The Kung
And they
flu.
found out that Anthony Fauci went into the CIA secretly. He didn't sign in or sign out, what you're supposed to do. And so this is in a detailed letter to them. It said that it led credence to heightened concerns about the promotion of false COVID origins narrative by multiple federal government agencies. And it said Anthony Fauci was escorted into the CIA headquarters, okay, just so you guys know, without any record of entry, and participated in the analysis to influence the agency's review. So basically, he's like, I don't want this going out because I don't want people to know that it originated from the Wuhan Institute of Virology.
Yep.
So like these colluders, these people are colluders.
It is colluding, and it is, continuing to lie to the American public to protect their power and the money that they receive from the taxpayers.
Yes, speaking of colluders, so remember the whole Michigan governor lady during COVID?
Whitmer?
Yes, they said that those people tried to kidnap her.
Yep.
So it has come now that those 3 guys who they tried to convict, they got acquitted.
They're not guilty
on all counts because the FBI plotted, organized, and tried to carry out to use these 3 gentlemen to kidnap, what was her name?
Gretchen Whitmer.
Okay, remember, nobody was allowed to go on their boats during COVID, but her and her husband would like be seen out on the lake driving around on their boat. Anyways, just funny how these people are.
This is how it's going to be in the end.
Yes.
There's going to be a class.
You have your elites.
No one's going to own anything, and you're all going to be happy. But then you're going to have a class. This is communism. This is Chinese communism. This is no different than what was going on in Russia.
Yeah. Okay,
if you think everybody gets the same, that's not the way it works.
No.
In communism. And you can see it. You can just see what was going on in COVID. Did any of these people follow the rules?
No, remember Gavin Newsom had parties?
Yeah, they didn't follow the rules.
No, they didn't.
Fauci had the same things as well.
Fauci's annoying. But the FBI, you guys, they organized this plot because they wanted to blame the kidnapping on Trump and right-wing supremacists.
Yeah.
So now fast forward to January 6th. What happened? Remember, we talked about last week, they had so many FBI agents involved, they didn't even know how many were involved. They had to go involved. They had to go back and check their information on it to see how many were in. And then ask yourself.
Involved in going in.
Into the Capitol and
That's
creating chaos.
Yes,
really
creating, opening the doors, breaking the windows.
Yeah. And
all right, I know we're not allowed to say that, but because freedom of speech is gone, but that's what's been proven. That's what's on camera. Yep. Okay,
but the January 6th people, they're only allowed to be tried in Washington, D.C. They're not allowed to be tried in the states where they're from. They all get tried in Washington, D.C. But these guys, the FBI agent from the Whitmore kidnapping, they were tried in their state and they were acquitted because the judge was like, the FBI colluded against you and tried to get you to do this. And now ask yourself, why are the January 6 people only in Washington, D.C.? Because they probably have a judge that's judges. We do know that they have judges that are backed by Clinton people because I've read about it. So you need to pray for the January 6 people. I know we talk about them a lot, but that's just pure evil. Yeah. Pure evil.
They're political prisoners.
They are political prisoners. Speaking of pure evil and the ladder to hell, I was, looking through Instagram last night, and this story shocked me. So there's over 1,000 minors reported missing in Cleveland, Ohio this year. Including almost 50 kids in the last month, you guys.
50 kids in a month.
Where are they disappearing
Where are they disappearing
1,000 kids in a year.
And do you know what the Attorney General said? They said, we can't rely on somebody turning information, and we're relying on parents. We don't know if this is from sex trafficking, runaways. We're not really sure, but 1,000 kids go missing. Okay.
We aren't even talking about what's going on in Hawaii and where are all the kids
from. Where are all the kids from Hawaii? And let me just tell you, when somebody goes missing, okay, I'm just going to share a personal story. So my grandma went missing 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Do you know the amount of police officers and people that looked for my grandma? They still haven't found her. Okay, she's a missing person. If you want to read about it, it's called Where is Grandma? She's the Champlain lady. But she went missing, and the amount of people that went out looking for a 75-ish-year-old woman is insurmountable. So the fact that 1,000 kids go missing and you don't hear one thing about it. In Ohio.
Just one state.
On the news is mind-boggling
in 9 months.
There's zero zero publicity about it. No,
There isn't.
50 in
coverage.
September. Yeah, no, where's
No
CNN?
coverage.
Where's MSNBC?
Right.
Where's CBS?
Remember when Gabby
Why?
Petito went
Are they
missing?
part of it?
You heard about her everywhere.
Are they part of it?
Are they part of it? Yeah, great question.
Okay.
I listened to his name is Jacob Buens, I think his name is. He did a special with Jimmy Evans and it talked about child sex trafficking in America. And I was shocked by the content that this guy brought. He said the average child sex trafficker is between like 30 or like he's a middle-aged man.
Yeah.
They make like roughly $100,000. It's like your soccer coach, baseball coach, whatever, normal person
Right.
who just becomes friends with a kid whose parents aren't paying attention to him. And then they offer the mom money and now you are sex trafficking a child. But he's like the amount, like it's like your neighbor next door. They said most of the time when he arrests these people, because he gets paid to go on cases. Obviously the government isn't doing much.
I'm surprised he's allowed to arrest people at this point.
Yeah, I'm shocked too.
You know
That's
that?
probably why they're trying to change.
Yes, I'm surprised.
the map.
Yes, but when I listened to this podcast, my heart was like, these sex traffickers, they use like 16-year-old kids because they have things on them to go get other kids
Yep.
to then bring them and have 1,000 kids missing with not a word about it.
I think
Not a word from
Not a
why?
word.
Why wouldn't MSNBC,
Yeah.
CNN, ABC, CBS, and NBC? Why wouldn't this be all over?
Right.
Could it be? Because could it be? I mean, I don't.
It's-
Why
it's-
wouldn't they say it?
yeah.
Why wouldn't this be a leading story in the news? But it's not. Why? You have to ask why.
Right. I think
This
one
is
of the
one state.
I think one of the things that we can do to make sure that this doesn't continue to move on is not allow them to change the language.
Yeah.
Not allow don't start using minor attracted person. Continue to talk to them or talk about them as child predators, as
Yes, they are
pedophiles,
predators.
people that are preying on the innocence of children. Don't allow that to be an accepted language change. Don't allow that.
This is part of the mass deception.
Yeah.
All right, and that we talk about, that the Bible talks about in the end times, the
Yeah.
spirit of Antichrist being in the world before the rapture even comes.
Yeah.
You've got 1,000 kids in Ohio in 9 months.
Yeah.
Gone.
Don't let the enemy frame the way
one
that you
talks about
speak.
Right.
No one talks about it. Right?
No.
Because the media is in on it. Sorry, but I just believe that. I believe that.
The media,
Otherwise, they
yeah.
would be promoting it. They would. They would be. That would be the number one thing.
Be the thing.
Who was that? Was it John Walsh who used to do?
Yeah,
Yes, he's great.
Catch a predator.
Yes. But you don't have shows like that anymore on. I mean, I remember growing up, I was afraid that I was going to get kidnapped all the time because of Jacob Borderling, but you just don't hear about that.
Well, I tell you what, it's you better plead the blood over your kids. You better
Yeah.
educate your kids.
You do. You need to.
You know, you got to be, even just a regular 25-year-old woman, I believe you have to be aware of the things that they do.
Absolutely.
Just right in parking lots, under cameras, right? And to get people into that world.
Yeah, it's
Maybe
demonic.
Can we just remember to talk about it next week?
Yes.
That because it's not a secret what they do. I mean, my daughter's talking about how they hit you in the ankle with a syringe. The drug is it makes you can't move at that point quickly. It
Immobilizes you.
Yeah, it immobilizes you, and you go into a van and no one ever sees you. You're one of the 1,000 missing in Ohio, right?
So
and
sad.
so, you know, the if there's ever something on your windshield,
Yep.
$100
bill. even.
$100 bill on your
Yeah.
windshield, drive off.
Yep.
Get in your car and drive off. Okay, get it
Like
later.
to a police station.
Yeah,
Yeah.
get it later, right? So
Get the
don't
$100.
Don't touch it.
at that
No.
point,
Don't touch it
Because-
because it's laced. It is most likely laced.
or they're going to grab you at that time when you're not
Right.
complete.
That's
When
true.
you're when you're when all they need is just your attention to be on something else.
Yep.
And you find yourself in the back of another vehicle, and so this stuff happens, right? And people are good at it. They use teenagers. Ma'am, could you help me, ma'am? could you come over here and, I've got to do this. And just right over here. It'll just take a second, ma'am. Right. Bring you over. Boom. They grab you. Right. And she gets a certain amount of money. Yep. And this is every day. This is every day. It's why you got 1,000 missing in Ohio that for some reason our media just doesn't talk about. They would rather talk about other.
I was shocked when I read that number, 1,000. That's a lot of. Yeah. That's like a whole school goes missing of children.
Right.
Like a small, a private school.
That's the size of the Christian school down here.
Yes,
At the end of the
1,000
Maranatha.
Kids that all
Maranatha's
gone.
about almost 900 kids. It's just gone, right? And so we are in the end times, and you were picked to be here it's what's the wording
for
in
such
Esther?
a time as this.
Such a time as this. You have to watch. You have to pay attention. You have to use your authority, all right? And you have to be a watchman on the walls, and because America can go into the rapture and the tribulation, with the church dragging, and barely making it, and thank God we made it. I thought they were going to kill us, or we can go out. We can go out on top.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I really feel like God has left it up to us.
Yeah.
We have more knowledge than any other generation of Christians in the history of mankind. Okay? And so it's our choice. It's the church's choice. Do we go out on top in the rapture? Do we go out as a glorious church, or do we go out weak and quiet and hiding in our basements?
With a whimper.
Yes, hiding in our basements from all this.
Basement hiders. Like the last guy who won the president, he was a basement hider.
So listen, we will be back next week. If you have not subscribed to the Final Hour podcast, please help us and subscribe. I just want to let you know, when YouTube, please get familiar with Rumble. We had a couple weeks ago when YouTube was punishing us for what they're calling misinformation. They wouldn't let us upload the Joe Morris episode. Mm-hmm. So what we did is on the website, we funneled that to Rumble. Yep. That is why you see a Rumble episode with like 800 views, right? Yeah. With Joe Morris. And so in the future, because you get 3 of these strikes in a 90-day period. We had 1 strike a couple weeks ago. And so if we're ever to pull us off, you'd have to pick us up on Rumble.
Yep.
If you go to the website, we would push all episodes to Rumble instead of YouTube.
TheFinalHourPodcast.com.
Yes, and you can get to all the episodes. Thank you, and please subscribe. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Final Hour Podcast. God bless you. Take your authority every day.